So, ladies and gentlemen, we have now the ministerial session. This is once again on the theme of the conference, Hydrocarbons to Fuel the Future, the Choices and the Challenges. Herein we are going to be shortly joined by the Honourable Minister for Coal Power, New and Renewable Energy, and also the Minister of Mines, Shri Piyush Goyal ji. And we have our overseas ministers also joining us. Please join us, ladies and gentlemen, as we have the chair of the session now, Shri Piyush Goyal ji, the Honourable Minister for Power, Coal, New and Renewable Energy, and the Minister for Mines, someone who has brought in many game-changing initiatives, the Uday scheme, improving the financial health of the DISCOM, the domestic production of coal, in fact, has improved, various regulatory reforms being introduced, the Ujala scheme towards the LEDs, and in fact, many of you might also be knowing that the Moody's rating has given a thumbs up to India, with the outlook changing from negative to now stable. So that's, ladies and gentlemen, we thank the Honourable Minister for taking so many initiatives which have brought about a revolutionary change in the sector. Welcome to the Honourable Minister. And now inviting our Honourable Overseas Ministers. May I request Excellency Bashir Made from Chad. Welcome to you, sir. Excellency Ezekiel Lol Gatko from South Sudan. Dr. Mohammad Zaid Awad from Sudan. Excellency Irene Muloni, the Honourable Minister for Energy and Mineral Development from Uganda. Dr. Orlando Valentia, the President of the National Hydrocarbons Agency of Colombia, from Colombia. And our knowledge partner, Mr. Ivan Martin, from the Boston Consulting Group. Thank you. May I request Mr. Ivan Martin to give us insights into the session, and then the Honourable Minister is going to be chairing the session. Thank you.
So, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce in this session. And for me, energy and natural resources is going to be the key issue of the 21st century. Energy demand is going to grow, and it's going to grow thanks or based on, it's not moving. It's going to be based on the increase in population and the increase in wealth of the different countries. We are going to have more people that want to live better. But we are living in a two-speed war. OECD countries are not growing or are even decreasing, and they are focusing on sustainability. And on the other hand, non-OECD Asia is growing and is struggling to do so in a very responsible way. The issue is how to achieve sustainable growth in those countries. And the demand is going to increase. I mean, China, for example, who is an important country in terms of energy demand, the total energy demand in 2040 is going to be twice the current demand of the United States. And India, with all the policies to accelerate India modernization, with the Make in India to develop a manufacturing base and with 350 million people moving into the cities, is going to enter a sustained period of rapid growth in energy consumption. With that context, there are many challenges and questions that we need to answer. And let me focus today in 5 of them. The first one is how we are going to deliver the hydrocarbons to sustain the growth. Do current prices make attractive the investment needed? Second question is, how could oil demand evolve? Which are the substitution effects, gas versus oil, electrical vehicles? Third one is, how will the interplay of gas and coal will play out? Sustainability versus cost versus independency. These are different trade-offs that we need to address. Fourth question is, how can governments collaborate in a world focused on sustainability? And finally, how can energy efficiency help meet the growth challenge that we have in front of us? So let me start with the first one. So exploration spend has been increasing at 15% annually from 2000 to 2015. But oil and gas production did not even double. From 2000 to 2005, the average annual production increased 0.8 million barrels per $1 billion invested in upstream. After 2005, only 0.4 million barrels, so half of the production increase per $1 billion invested in upstream. And the reasons has been that we have gone into much more complicated plays. We have shifted to less accessible resources from onshore to deep and ultra deep, from water depths of 79 meters in 85 to depths of more than 2,000 meters, from basins that were 10 kilometers from the shore to basins that are 200 kilometers from the shore. So all of that has made much more complex. And that applies to oil, but also applies to gas. The average cost of LNG projects have gone up drastically, from $500 per TPA in 2000 into $1,300 per TPA in 2015. So this is a major cost increase that is creating some issues. I mean, on the one hand, fiscal regimes will need to be adapted to a possible era of lower for longer, because countries will need to compete for the scarce resources of the scarce investments of the oil and gas companies in the world. Second, there will be an opportunity for all the oil and gas companies to move to a new operating model based on lean operations, supplier collaboration, and a culture based in cost consciousness and continuous improvement. The second thing that I wanted to address is, what are the uses of oil? And first, I mean, transport is about oil. Oil is used extensively in all modes of transport: road, air, maritime. Natural gas, biofuels, and electricity share is not significant currently. On the other hand, the oil industry is about transport. The oil industry relies on transportation sector, which consumes over 50% of the industry output. 43% of the oil demand is road transportation. And from 2015 to 2014, freight and aviation demand is going to increase by 3 million barrels. But going forward, technology development in batteries is going to make electrical vehicles much more cost effective. The cost of a lithium-ion battery fell already by 66% between 2000 and 2015, and is expected to fall below $130 per kilowatt hours in the coming years. And there are predictions that it will go lower than $100 by 2022. There are very divergent views on the pace of penetration of electrical vehicles, and new sales electrical vehicle car penetration by 2030 range for 50%, predicted by International Council of Clean Transportation, to 12% predicted or based on the intended national determined contribution that the different countries submitted for COP21. But we should not forget that in any case, electrical vehicles are not really clean. because at the end of the day, they depend on the power generation mix. So it's a very different electrical vehicles in a country where, I mean, the vast majority of the power generation is based on renewables, gas, or nuclear, to a country where 70–80% of the power generation is coal. And also, because of the subsidies, is a very expensive way to reduce CO2 due to the subsidies. But all that has implications in terms of the oil demand. And historically, the oil demand has been growing steadily and predictably, around 1% annual growth through several economic cycles. Demand has increased 30% since 2000. But now there is an intensive debate around where peak oil demand is going to happen. Some people yesterday predicted that it could be in 2027, but I mean, the real peak oil demand will depend a lot on your estimations, what we believe will be electrical vehicle penetration, what will be the substitution of oil in power generation, what will be the efficiency of the increasing efficiency of the internal combustion engines, and what will be the economic growth of the different countries. Based on all that, there are scenarios that contemplate that a 10% reduction by 2030 of the oil demand is feasible. But in any case, it's extremely difficult to forecast. The third challenge is coal versus gas. And Asian countries need to grow in a responsible way. And there are trade-offs between the cost of the energy, the independency, and the sustainability. And each country will decide based on their specific trade-offs, the availability of coal and gas in the country, the price differential between coal and gas, and the sustainability issues that affect each specific countries. In any case, the transition will take time. There is still an extensive fleet of coal plants. Until 2 years ago, China was building one coal plant every week, and there is also a speed of penetration of the renewables that is going to affect the substitution between coal and gas. And that brings me to another topic which is important, which is sustainability and greenhouse gases emissions. And emissions are concentrated in very few geographies. I mean, China represents 28% of the emissions, US with 4.5% of the population represents 16% of the emissions, the European Union 10%, and then is India, Russia, Japan, Canada, and Brazil, the countries that are emitting more. And these global greenhouse gas emissions are driven by different sectors. Energy generation is causing 40% of the emissions. The energy usage, industry, transport, and buildings represent another 40%, but we should not forget that there is a 20% of the emissions that are created by agriculture, farming, and land use. And this is a major issue that has been addressed in the last COP22 meeting in Morocco, where a new initiative called the AAA, Africa, Agriculture and Adaptation, has been launched to fight against emissions in the agricultural sector. But the major sources of emissions reduction are the coal to gas substitution, the improving the coal plant efficiencies, the increased penetration of wind and solar, and addressing the issues related with the agricultural sector. There has been a big change in the trend after COP21, because in COP21, the global leaders committed to a temperature limit of well below 2 degrees, and we reached a landmark agreement breaking away from the momentum of previous unsuccessful conferences like Copenhagen or Durban. And now we have an agreement that is bringing me to the next topics, which is the need to collaborate. And if we want to be more sustainable, we need to act fast, we need to act in a global way, and we need to act in a radical way. And this collaboration between countries, between companies, will increase the chances of the technological breakthroughs that we need in domains like efficient transportation, CCS, capture carbon and sequestration, renewables, energy storage, efficient power generation, and agricultural and farming. Governments are already collaborating. There are many initiatives underway to collaborate on funding and on the technological development. But the challenges are huge. I mean, India, for example, has an objective on installed capacity for renewables to increase threefold by 2022, and even assuming India aggressive build-up of solar and wind to 175 gigawatts, even in that situation, CO2 emissions will continue to increase by 30% by 2022. In the case of the companies, the oil and gas sector has been vilified wrongly as the cause of all the problems, when the reality is that they are trying to be part of the solution. And a very good initiative that I would like to highlight is the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative, who is a leading example of collaboration in the industry, where 11 companies that are representing more than 20% of the oil and gas production have committed to increase the share of natural gas in the generation mix, to reduce methane emissions from routine and flaring operation, to improve energy efficiency, and to explore long-term solutions like CCS and renewables. And they have already reduced their emission by 20% since 2005. Another area where we need collaboration is to provide access to energy. Inequality in energy access and the way people consume energy is a major issue. It was also mentioned yesterday that more than 1.1 billion people lack electricity access, and 2.9 billion people are still using firewood for cooking and heating. The total power generation in Africa is 138 gigawatts, which is less than 3% of global capacity. So major oil companies and gas companies have joined OFID from OPEC and World Petroleum Council to launch this energy access platform that is trying to commit to give access to all the people in the world. And finally, the last point is about energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is something that we must really implement. We need really energy to be energy efficient. And that was the agreement that the Asian energy ministers agreed last year in Doha, where they signed a commitment to push energy efficiency, because energy efficiency is going to play a major role in meeting the growth challenge that we have in front of us, especially in the emerging countries. We need more efficient generation, we need smart grids and metering, we need efficient appliances and lighting, and we need energy efficiency buildings. We expect that 40% of the emissions reductions that are required by 2050 are going to come from energy efficiency savings. But an important point I wanted to raise is that a lot can be achieved with using already available technologies. And here I have put an example. If residential lighting and home appliances, German standards, were applied to the US, just by applying those standards, not new technology, it's technology that is currently available, we could save 230 terawatt hours, which is equivalent to 40 coal plants. The emissions of that 40 coal plants is equivalent to all the transport in Japan, or to all the emissions or the country where I'm coming from, who is Spain. So in summary, we have plenty of challenges in front of us, but we also have many opportunities. But in general, I think that there are three things that I would summarize are important. First, companies need to move to a new operating model because energy sector is facing a new paradigm. This is not another one of those cycles that we have had in the past. We are facing a totally new paradigm. Second, we need to find ways to have a more responsible growth journey in the different countries. And third, we need to focus on energy efficiency. And we need to do all that because we need more energy for more people with less emissions. Thank you very much. Yes. So now I would like to introduce the address of Mr. Sri Piyush Goyal, who is the Honorable Minister for Power, Coal, New and Renewable Energy and Mines from India.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ivan Martin from the Boston Consulting Group. Most distinguished excellencies from Chad, South Sudan, Sudan, Uganda, and Colombia, distinguished delegates who have come in from different parts of the world for this very important Petrotech conference. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be amongst all of you in this second ministerial session discussing hydrocarbons which will fuel the future, and what are the challenges, what are the choices before us. And I'm delighted that this biannual conference has almost become now legendary. It's become an important part, a benchmark for technology expositions in this part of the world. And I must compliment my colleague Minister Shri Dharmendra Pradhanji for having taken this entire conference to the next level. Petrotech is organized by the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, and I think the engagement level has completely taken it to the heights of modern technology being discussed, relations being developed, and new business propositions being taken forward. In fact, such a platform where you can exchange views and share knowledge, expertise, experience was something which we needed to scale up to a new level. It's the 12th international conference that is now being held, and I'm quite confident that the outcomes of this conference will help us in our plans for the future in the energy sector. If there's one industry which has dominated world politics, it's the oil and gas sector. Probably even today it dominates election results, and we have one as recent as last month which once again brings to fore the importance of the oil and gas sector, and different narratives about climate change, different narratives about development imperatives, different narratives about business compulsions were debated and discussed in the world's largest country in terms of the superpower of the world. And in some sense, the people of that country have given a verdict which fits into the narrative of this conference. So really you are meeting at a very, very defining moment in world history. But despite whatever other parts of the world may do, India is one country which stands committed in this global effort to fight the problems of climate change, to ensure that we look at a sustainable future going forward. And we believe that our role in this global effort is not dependent on what any other country does, is not out of compulsion, but it comes out of conviction that we need to leave behind a world which is a better place to live in for the next generation than possibly what we inherited. And in that sense, while fossil fuels will continue to play an important role in the days to come, we'll have to continuously engage and look for better ways to utilize fossil fuels in a more efficient manner, bringing down the carbon emissions, bringing down its impact on the environment. Power, of course, is an integral part of the total energy chain, and all that you will discuss in the course of this conference will have its resonance on the power sector also. I was just seeing the presentation that Ivan just put out, and I saw, despite the conference being on the oil and gas sector, the focus on renewables, the focus on energy efficiency was tremendous. And therefore, both these sectors, power and oil and gas sector, are intrinsically correlated, will have to work hand in hand, and will have to continuously evolve with changing technologies and with the changing future. In fact, I'm reminded of what Rudolf Diesel had said maybe 100 years ago, when he was talking about his vision for the future. And in some sense, this highlighted the biofuel industry and the importance of the biofuel industry even as early as in 1900. The use of vegetable oils for engine fuels may seem insignificant today, he said then. But such oils may become in course of time as important as petroleum and the coal tar which we are using at present time. So I think he was a visionary who, even though he in some sense was very integral to the success of this oil and petroleum sector, but could visualize that we'll ultimately run out of fossil fuels and we'll have to look at a world beyond fossil fuels. And that's the kind of engagement that the whole world is looking at now. While India's oil and gas sector is continuing to be largely import dependent, particularly in the oil sector where we are 81% import dependent, in gas 37%, but that also because we are not consuming gas to the extent we can. India's true demand of gas is not being really exploited. And I do hope the engagements that you all have in the course of this conference will help us come up with a more robust policy framework to expand the use of gas in the days to come. In fact, our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi is on record to say that the energy security of India is based on clean and reliable sources and of energy, and that is the future that we are trying to secure for the country, and that is intrinsically also linked with our own domestic sources of raw material, our domestic oil production, our domestic gas production. And I do hope the new framework that the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas has brought out will encourage investments in exploration and exploitation of oil and gas resources so that India can increasingly become self-reliant, can increasingly bring down its imports in this sector. In fact, the very recent agreement that we have seen over the last week also brings to fore the importance of India's emerging out of the shadows of import and becoming more and more domestically dependent, more and more indigenous sources of oil and gas becoming the source of our dependency for petroleum products. I even talked a lot about the falling prices of batteries and possibly the increasing relevance of electric vehicles. We in India are also very conscious of that. While electricity is a major source of concern, and for that we are addressing with newer forms of clean coal, newer forms of renewable energy, I think the use of petroleum and diesel in the automobile sector is another area where this country is evolving new policies, is evolving new plans going forward, which will help us cut down our consumption of oil and petroleum products and move towards electricity for powering our automobiles, and simultaneous with our efforts for energy efficiency and renewable sources of energy, a very holistic framework is being drawn up to cut down our carbon intensity per unit of GDP, and we stand committed to what we have said in Paris, the INDCs that we have espoused. The 33% reduction in carbon intensity per unit of GDP is something that India stands committed to. And just taking a cue from what Ivan just presented, while India's absolute carbon emission may go up because of our increasing energy needs, our energy, the climate change impact or the carbon emissions per unit of GDP is expected to fall sharply. And one will have to look at that figure in the context of India's development imperatives. After all, India is still much below the world standard in terms of consumption of electricity, in terms of GDP incomes per capita. And we are very, very conscious that as we go up the development cycle and take India to the status of a developed nation, we'll have to look at increasing the energy consumption per capita. We'll have to look at increasing per capita incomes for the people of India, but we'll have to look at that in a more sustainable manner, in a manner which does not leave on the footprints of time, increasing pollution, increasing greenhouse gases beyond the bare minimum with which we can manage this development process, this increase in the people's quality of life. In fact, biomass, biofuels, all of these are engagements which both the Ministry of Petroleum and the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy are working together to expand in the days to come, and we are hopeful that going forward, all these newer forms of energy will help us power our electricity and automotive needs in a more sustainable, in a more efficient manner. You spoke about energy efficiency. That's a program on which India has taken leadership role. It's not something which we are looking at with very small ambitions. If one was to take just the lighting load of the country, and being a country which is still lower down in the development index, lighting takes up a very large part of India's energy demand. And India has taken it upon itself to convert our entire lighting load to LEDs by 2019. We've had significant success in the first 1.5 years of our program. We have already been able to replace by the government program about 182 million old bulbs, the old incandescent bulbs and CFLs by LEDs. And if we take the private sector into account, at an aggregate, India has probably been able to replace 1/3 of the total lighting by LEDs already. And by 2019, we hope to be 100% LED country. We're powering or lighting our country only by LEDs. In the process, reducing the electricity consumption by about 112 billion units of energy, reducing our peak load demand by about 22 gigawatts, and bringing down the electricity bills of our consumers by about $6 or $7 billion, and in the whole process, reducing carbon dioxide emissions by 80 million tons per year. 80 million ton reduction every year, only by one LED program towards energy efficiency. So huge amount of potential for improved efficiency despite our electricity consumption being small. Simultaneously, we are hoping to tie up long-term gas contracts with other parts of the world so that we can start powering our gas-based plants once again, many of which are running at very low levels of capacity utilization. And we do hope to see in the days to come some engagement where we can bring down our cost of gas and start powering our gas-based power plants, which will not only help us use more efficient fuel for the power plants, but also provide a spinning reserve, a balancing reserve to ensure that our electricity grid remains stable and remains efficient, and we can fulfill the vision of this government to provide 24/7 power for all, affordable, quality, uninterrupted and sustainable power. We stand committed to make that happen well before our stated goal of 2022. We believe that the people of India have a right to an important utility like electricity 24/7, and this government will ensure that every village in this country gets connected by next year, every home in this country gets connected by 2019, and we ensure the ability of the power transmission system, the grid, to reach power to every part of India, wherever that is not possible, to reach power through distributed networks, but ensure that across India, the people of India can benefit with 24/7 energy access. Farmers of India get adequate electricity so that they can till their fields, increase their productivity, increase their farm output. And every student, every hospital, every school, college gets energy access, thereby improving the quality of life of our people. And within that framework, I do believe the association with the Petroleum Ministry is very, very integral to our long-term vision and plans to bring down carbon intensity. I believe our efforts towards electric vehicles, our effort towards increasing use of biofuels, and Minister Pradhan has very successfully increased the engagement with the ethanol sector. We are now close to 5% blending on ethanol, and I would look at that percentage also increasing in the days to come. So there are significant synergies between the two sectors, and I do hope those synergies can be taken to the next level in partnership with all of the stakeholders who are engaged in Petrotech, and working together, we can not only meet the ambitions for a better quality of life and more power for all, but we can also do that in a sustainable manner, in an efficient manner, and in a manner which leaves behind for the people of India a roadmap which is both energy secure and sustainable. Thank you very much for your patience, and I look forward to all my co-panelists.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you very much for this speech full of conviction about a sector that is in constant evolution, where you have ambitious targets, where you are really committed to sustainability, and where, as I understand, India wants to play a leadership role. So now let me introduce the next speaker, His Excellency Mr. Bekir Madet, Minister from Chad.
The Honourable Minister from Chad is going to be delivering his address in French. You are requested to kindly switch to the English channel.
Mesdames et messieurs, le gouvernement de la République du Tchad remercie le gouvernement indien d'avoir invité le ministère du Pétrole et de l'Énergie à la Biennale de Petrotech 2016 dans cette belle et millénaire ville de Delhi et de ce grand et beau pays que le Tchad, que l'Inde. Le Tchad, pays producteur de pétrole, nous sommes très engagés dans le partenariat sud-sud avec le leadership de l'Inde pour le développement gagnant-gagnant. Permettez-moi donc de vous faire la présentation du secteur pétrolier énergétique au Tchad avec les perspectives d'investissement et du développement des énergies renouvelables pour la protection de l'environnement. Je vous présente donc le sommaire qui se compose donc de deux parties de notre exposé, du potentiel pétrolier et du potentiel énergétique. D'abord, la présentation géographique du Tchad. Nous sommes donc situés au cœur de l'Afrique centrale avec une superficie de 1 284 000 et avec une population d'environ 15 millions d'habitants. Et le Tchad a plusieurs potentialités pétrolières et minières. Il produit à ce jour 150 000 barils par jour. Et donc, nous sommes en partenariat avec plusieurs sociétés Esso Petronas, OPIC, CNPC Clividen, Glencore, ARC, Global Petroleum, GT Regalis, Mage and Petroleum. Et je vous présente ainsi donc les blocs disponibles. Nous avons à ce jour plus de vingtaine de blocs disponibles qui couvrent donc tout le Tchad. Et donc, en ce qui concerne la procédure d'attribution, je vous présente la procédure d'attribution de permis en vue de rentrer dans le processus d'exploration. Et évidemment, nous disposons également d'un système de transport par pipeline qui part du Tchad au Cameroun. Pour une longueur de 1070 km² avec une capacité actuelle de 230 000 barils par jour, mais une capacité maximale de 500 000 barils jour. Nous disposons également d'une production, d'une exportation et du raffinage avec une raffinerie constituée à capitaux mixtes par CNPC et l'État du Tchad et une capacité initiale de 20 000 barils par jour avec une capacité maximale de 60 000 barils jour. Ainsi donc, les perspectives sont la mise en production de plusieurs champs découverts par les sociétés telles United Hydrocarbons, CNPC, OPIC, la construction également d'autres pipelines par Glencore, CNPC, pour acheminer d'autres bruts de champs de Salamat, de d'OCO et Akome. Nous avons également en vue la construction du pipeline Niger-Tchad pour la promotion et valorisation des différents bassins. Nous voulons également promouvoir les blocs libres, faciliter les conditions d'investissement dans le secteur pétrolier pour faire des informations complémentaires et l'accompagnement des sociétés dans l'exploration pétrolière. Le potentiel énergétique. Le gouvernement tchadien met un accent particulier dans la promotion des énergies nouvelles et renouvelables. Il s'engage à accorder la facilité aux investisseurs. Les potentialités énergétiques du Tchad sont telles qu'on vous le présente, qui profitent du potentiel solaire, également du potentiel éolien. Les projets énergétiques sont immenses également, à savoir la construction de centrales hybrides et la construction de champs photovoltaïques. Et donc, le Tchad s'est engagé aussi à faciliter la construction, l'interconnexion avec des pays voisins tels que le Cameroun. Et donc, à ce jour, nous avons un taux de pénétration très faible en électricité, mais nous pensons que d'ici à l'objectif en 2030, c'est de pouvoir atteindre 80% de nos populations. Ainsi donc, présenter la communication du Tchad en ce qui concerne les énergies nouvelles et renouvelables et également les hydrocarbures pour Hydrotech 2016. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
Yes. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre. Thank you very much for your presentation where you highlighted the growth opportunities in your country and also the collaboration you are having with other countries and also with companies to develop the resources you have in your country. So now let's move into the next presenter. Let me introduce you the representative from South Sudan, His Excellency Ezekiel Lol Gatwok.
Thank you very much for having me when I'm struggling with this podium. I think it is not energy sufficient for me. Maybe next time when you are organizing, you need to consider the height also. Honorable Minister, Goyal, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. First and foremost, allow me to express my gratitude and appreciation to the Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas of India for organizing this wonderful event. And also for inviting me to this informative, educative, and innovative Petronas or Petrotech 2016 conference. It is an honor to be here and meet my counterparts from different countries of the world, especially from Africa, Europe, Asia, and Americas. Allow me also to convey greetings from my President, His Excellency General Salva Kiir Mayardit, to all of you and to his brother, the Prime Minister of India, Honorable Modi, for putting this excellent conference together. And also we are so happy that we are here, myself and my delegation. We came from South Sudan, and also our ambassador here, Ambassador Daniel Othol, who is representing us in India. We are so happy with the kind hospitality that we have received from the government and also the people of India. This is my first time to be here, and I'm so impressed with the beauty here. And of course, when I hear of India, I always hear good things. Movies, Taj Mahal, one of the wonders, and the beauty of it. And for your information, South Sudanese are so many here in India because we believe that when you go to India, you will be cured. The technology in medicine is so advanced, and we are very happy to have friendly relationship with this country. And we will continue to have this beautiful relationship. As a career diplomat myself, I learned about diplomacy as an art of persuasion and convincing others to do things in the best interest, and found the same also is applying here in oil business. In the world of business, especially on oil and energy, we have to work together as nations, governments, and companies to fulfill the needs of one another based on the mutual understanding and cooperation. And it has to be a win-win solution for all of us. In Africa, many countries are producing, especially South Sudan, we are producing oil. We used to produce close to 500,000 barrels a day, but because of the shortages or the oil prices, we have reduced, and the crisis that we had briefly in South Sudan, we are currently producing 130,000 barrels a day. But as a new minister, I'm working hard to make sure that the production increases at the beginning of this coming year. there are many opportunities in South Sudan. South Sudan is the newest country in the world. We gained our independence in 2011, and also we are a landlocked country. As a landlocked country, it has become imperative to embark on finding alternative route to where the country should be able to modernize its resources. We have started to develop our infrastructures that can help in further utilizing the natural resources in the country. We are focusing, as I said before, we in Africa, we are producing crude, but the consumption is very less. In the case of South Sudan, we are selling the crude, but the refined products are not there in the markets. I'm sure the same with Nigeria and many countries in Africa. You see a lot of lines in the petrol stations. And you wonder, if you are producing crude, why are you not refining it so that you can meet the local demands? In South Sudan, we are focusing now on refineries. We want to refine some of the crudes that we are producing so that we can meet the local demand and the region, because we have a huge market in East Africa. You have Uganda, my sister here will attest to that, that we are demanding fuel, refined products. Also we have Ethiopia, we have Sudan, my brother here also can attest to that, and Kenya and many other countries in the region. So we are actually embarking on building a huge refinery so that we can sell fuel or refined products to the neighboring countries. We are also building fuel depots so that we can store some of the refined products that we are having. We are also building roads, railways and bridges so that we can transport what we are refining in South Sudan. South Sudan is blessed with huge reserves of oil and other minerals, gold and others. Myself, we are engaged with oil companies, those who are interested in investing in South Sudan. We have blocks that we are considering of awarding them out. We have block B1, B2, and also B3. These are huge concessions that we will give out very soon. Total is involved in negotiating with us, and Orento from Nigeria, and many other companies which are interested in investing in South Sudan. We will be negotiating and agreeing on the exploration production sharing agreement soon so that they can start producing. We have big players in our oil industry. ONGC is there, usually they are investing. We have also CNPC. We also have Petronas, they are involved. Of course, we have our own challenges in South Sudan, and it is not only us alone, especially the low oil prices, it is hitting all of us. We are recovering, and thanks to the OPEC, now they have some good news for all of us so that we can start recovering. We also have challenges in infrastructure. We also have limited direct investment in petroleum sector. As a new country also, the skills is still lacking. Professionals, South Sudanese who are well versed in the oil industry. We are also so happy that ONGC is training South Sudanese here. So far, they have provided scholarships to South Sudanese. Over 25 of them, they are studying petroleum engineering, so that when they go back, then we will utilize their skills. Of course, as I said it before, South Sudan is blessed with huge resources, natural resources, but we cannot do it alone. And that's why it is very important for us, to our friends in this room, those who will be interested in investing in oil sector, you are welcome. South Sudan is a huge country. It is actually the size of the land is 620,000 square miles, with a population of 10 million people. We can accommodate all of you. So you are actually invited to invest in South Sudan. Agriculture is also an area where you can invest. Of course, I said before, we are having difficulties in energy. You can see we are using generators as of today. We don't have sufficient means of producing energy. So this is where companies that are so well versed in providing energy to the population will be invited. Finally, I want to thank the Indian government, represented here by His Excellency the Minister, and also the ONGC for the support and services they are rendering to my country. They have been with us during a difficult time. I warn ONGC and oil companies in India to engage in exploration of new wells. We have potentials in oil industry, and I'm inviting not only ONGC but other companies to come and invest in South Sudan. I'm looking forward to a good working relationship with my brother here, the Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas, to work with me to develop the resources that we are having in South Sudan. I wanted to thank you very much for listening. God bless all of us.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I mean, coming from a resource-rich country that needs to attract investments to develop the upstream resources, and that also want to integrate downstream to satisfy local and regional demand. So I hope you will attract many investors here. Thank you. So the next presenter, I would like to introduce His Excellency, the Dr. Mohammed Zayed Awad from Sudan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excellency Mr. Piyush Goyal, the State Minister for Power and Coal, Excellencies, fellow ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good afternoon. Allow me at the outset of my address to express my heartfelt gratitude to the government and people of the Republic of India for extending invitation to Sudan to participate in this important event. Myself and the delegation are grateful for the warm reception and hospitality unique to this great country. I am also honored to be addressing this highly professional audience. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Sudan has been an oil producer for 18 years now and has spent majority of these years as a net exporter of petroleum to the international market. However, exports have declined since 2011 upon secession of South Sudan, taking with 3/4 of the production. And since then, the Sudan government strategy has been to replenish the existing petroleum resources through increased exploration activities and improvement of recovery factors in the currently producing fields in an effort to sustain petroleum supply to the growing economy and ensure all sectors of economy have access to stable energy supply. As is the case with most of the developing countries, stable energy supply and sustainable energy access are major agenda for Sudan. It must, however, be acknowledged that the recent slump in oil prices has had a major effect on the investment in the petroleum sector. Like other countries, Sudan has witnessed a slowdown in petroleum investment activities. This, coupled with the fact that production costs have been somewhat obstinated following the trend of low oil prices, and has consequently eroded the profitability of the investors. Ladies and gentlemen, this situation has initiated and enhanced energy dialogue among producers and consumers. I would like from this podium to extend gratitude to the International Energy Forum for leading and coordinating the dialogue. However, I strongly recommend that the International Energy Forum consider bringing along, besides the consumers and the producers, the service providers. Service providers, ladies and gentlemen, play a critical role in balancing the market, simply because they control the per barrel cost and thus dictate the profit margins for the investors. So unit service cost must be appropriately priced. In times of low oil prices, or the times of low oil prices inflict losses on all producers, investors, consumers, and ultimately the service providers. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, hydrocarbon will remain a major source of energy, and we believe that applying appropriate and cost-effective technologies, as well as adopting an energy mix approach, are key for sustainable petroleum supplies. Developing countries such as Sudan should take on a strategy to encourage the local companies owned by the indigenous service providers to service sectors or indigenous private sectors to pursue providing services in petroleum sector in a joint venture manner with the foreign service providers. This can be achieved through policy modification to introduce local content strategy and competitive bidding so as to attract efficient service providers, efficient in terms of cost and quality. Such measures will help these countries create jobs and likewise help the investors continue funding projects in both production and exploration. Well, ladies and gentlemen, exploration remains key activity to adding reserves and sustaining production, at least for self-sufficiency in countries like Sudan. Enormous potential for traditional oil traps exist in Sudan, and there is also room for unconventional exploration traps such as fracture basement and stratigraphic traps. In Sudan, we are looking at 23 billion barrels of speculative reserves in such unconventional traps. Another technology, enhanced oil recovery through various technologies, is an important venue for production and reserve increase, especially in Sudan now, as we have been producing for 18 years, as I have said before. And the majority of the fields in Sudan are in the green stage, or in the brown stage. Investors view jobs, or such jobs, enhanced oil recovery, as being a capital-intensive work. But when development commences with EOR in mind, so when we start developing the fields with EOR in mind from the very beginning, cost and time will be slashed by half and gain will be great. So this is a message. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, natural gas will remain the vital source of energy for power generation and household usage for decades to come. Sudan is currently working on developing gas fields for gas to liquid projects aimed at providing fuel, diesel, gasoline, and LPG to regions surrounding the fields. These are urban areas. Gas will also be utilized to fire power plants connected to the natural grids. Plans are available for utilization of further gas discoveries for iron production from Sudan's massive iron ore deposits. In terms of petroleum downstream, plans to expand our refining capacity through extending the capacity of existing refineries and setting up new commercial refineries for refurbishing the existing Port Sudan refinery. This is one of the refineries that was working for long, but now it's suspended and it's located in a very attractive geographical position along the Red Sea. But apart from that, we have two refineries, the Khartoum refinery, with a capacity of 90,000 barrels per day, and then we have Al Ubaid refinery in the center of Sudan with a capacity of 15,000 barrels a day. Our network of pipelines and other petroleum product distribution outlets is robust and is spread through the country in an effort to satisfy the growing network of routes in urban and rural areas and the growing agricultural requirements for fuel and energy. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Sudan National Electricity Grid currently scales the nation from north to south, and about 64% of the total energy production come from hydro generation, and 35% comes from thermal stations. Currently, electricity consumption in Sudan is increasing by 14% per year, putting pressure on petroleum sector to increase the availability of fuel. Renewables, ladies and gentlemen, have faced an array of challenges and is still facing, commencing upfront high initial investment cost for wind turbines and photovoltaics. Nevertheless, Sudan plans to introduce alternative energy resources articulated in a national renewable energy master plan. The master plan looks for 5 years for five possible resources, namely solar, and Sudan is properly geographically located for such an energy, as well as wind, geothermal, and small hydro and bio mass for future energy sources. As can be collected from my speech, ladies and gentlemen, Sudan is seeking to direct policies, practices, and investment towards providing sustainable energy resources for nation and for the people. As challenging as meeting the increasing demand for hydrocarbon is, there is no alternative but hard work and smart policies to achieve the objective of sustainable supply. So with the legal instruments in place, and you have very attractive legal framework in the country for investors in the sector of petroleum, and with the environment set and the large resources potential that we have in Sudan, we invite investors to come to Sudan to tap the results of petroleum business. In a nutshell, we have 15 petroleum acreage, which are at different level of exploration, and some of them are producing also. These are free and are available for potential investors. Services, material, and technology providers are welcome to showcase their product and bid. And companies wishing to invest in petroleum product pipelines, we have also feasibility studies for pipelines network for transporting finished products in Sudan. This is also an area for an investment. Likewise, we have many fields which have been discovered, many gas fields, but not developed, and we are putting a very strategic plan for developing those fields to supply or to replace the fuel by gas for the power generation. As I said earlier, 35% of the stations or the power stations are being powered by fuel, but by diesel. So this has to be replaced by gas. Ladies and gentlemen, before I leave the floor, I would like to gratefully thank India for their support, and in particular, ONGC, who has been participating in funding upstream and downstream projects in Sudan since 2003 up to now. And we consider ONGC and India as a strategic partner in the oil sector in Sudan. Thank you very much for your attention. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. Thank you very much also for reminding us of the consequences of low oil prices and the importance of the service providers, and also for highlighting the need for and your commitment for legal stability in the country. Thank you very much. Now let me introduce the next presenter, Her Excellency Irene Muloni, Minister for Energy and Mineral Development from Uganda.
Thank you, Chair. Our host, colleague Minister Goyal, and my colleague ministers here present, and all of you distinguished delegates. I bring you warm greetings from Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, led by His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And it's really an honor for me to once again attend and participate in Petrotech. And on behalf of the government of Uganda, I want to commend my counterpart, the Honorable Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas, for organizing yet another successful international petroleum conference and exhibition. The extensive representations of delegates from the different continents in both public and private sectors is evidence of the significance of the discussions taking place during this conference. As key decision makers, it is our responsibility to ensure that petroleum resources contribute to sustainable development, which is described by the theme for Petrotech 2016, Hydrocarbons to Fuel the Future, Choices and Challenges. And in order to achieve this, the public and the private sectors must continuously work together and dialogue on strategies to harness the world's petroleum resources to achieve lasting value, especially for developing economies such as Uganda. Uganda is one of the 10 fastest growing economies in Africa. And as an emerging petroleum producer, we will utilize these natural resources to transform into a modern and prosperous society, which is in the vision of our National Development Plan 2040. Our focus is on transforming our black gold to green gold, given that we are an agricultural country, and therefore petroleum will be an engine that fuels other productive sectors of the economy, such as agriculture, tourism, industry, manufacturing, infrastructure like electricity, social services sector, schools, hospitals, among others, roads, among others. The government has created a suitable environment to facilitate investment, especially in the energy sector, which includes petroleum and minerals subsectors. And since this conference is focused on hydrocarbons, I wish to briefly highlight the recent developments in Uganda's petroleum sector, whose development is guided by our national oil and gas policy, which was developed in 2008, together with the specific petroleum laws and regulations for the upstream, midstream, and downstream subsectors, which are all in place. Looking at our resource base, we have been able to attract significant investment in the petroleum sector, which has resulted into confirming of 21 oil and gas discoveries in the country. The drilling success rate in Uganda is currently over 85%, which is one of the highest in the world. And the cost of finding oil in Uganda is less than $1 per barrel. The resources in these discoveries are estimated at 6.5 billion barrels of oil equivalent, with the possibility of recovering between 1.4 to 1.7 billion barrels of oil equivalent, and over 500 billion cubic feet of gas, the bulk of which is associated gas. This has been achieved in an exploration area of only 40% of the Albertine Graben, which is our most prospective sedimentary basin. However, only less than 10% of the Graben is currently licensed to 3 international oil companies, and that is Tullow Oil, Total, E&P, and CNOOC. When we look at the licensing, Uganda's first competitive licensing round was announced last year, and it is comprising of about 3,000 square kilometers, which is only about 12% of the acreage in the Albertine Graben. 4 applicants have been evaluated as successful bidders, and government has embarked on negotiations with them. Upon successful negotiations, the exploration licenses will be granted. And we hope this is going to be done before the end of this year. This will definitely contribute to increasing the country's resource base and enable additional investment. We are also undertaking a gradual licensing strategy in order to enhance the country's sustainability of oil and gas production as we build the capacity of Ugandans and Ugandan institutions in the public and private sectors to efficiently manage the resources. Government has also granted 9 petroleum production licenses over 14 oil fields. 5 of these have been licensed to Total Oil, 3 to Total E&P, and 1 to Sinok, Uganda Limited. These 3 companies are joint venture partners in each of the licenses. And the licensees have now embarked on field development as a precursor to attaining commercial production by 2020. Evaluation of 2 additional applications for production licenses is still ongoing, while one of the discoveries is still under appraisal. Another 4 discoveries were considered sub-commercial and linkaged back to government, and these are some of, they are part of the acreage that is under licensing round. What commercialization strategy have we undertaken? Our commercialization strategy is focused on valuable utilization of the discovered resources, and in line with the policy, we agreed on 3 destinations. One is use of petroleum for power generation in the interim, involving a small volume of crude production in the order of 500 barrels of oil per day, with the existing thermal power plants considered as a short-term market. Now, this strategy will contribute to acquiring technical data that could be useful for optimizing the full field development. The second destination is supply of crude oil to a 60,000 barrels per day refinery to be developed in the country to meet our national and regional petroleum products requirements. Right now, in the East African region, we do not have a refinery. As my brother from South Sudan indicated, we are all importing these petroleum products. Uganda alone, the consumption is over 30,000 barrels per day equivalent, but when you look at the East Africa region, it's over 200,000 barrels per day equivalent of petroleum products. So there is really need that we cater for our energy needs as a region. Now, it's important that we look at this refinery to add value to this resource, and the 60,000 barrels per day that I talked about, we are planning to invest and develop it as a PPP, public-private partnership, where a lead investor will take 60% and public 40%. We are already in touch with our East Africa partner states, and some of them have already expressed interest in participating in the refinery. We have Kenya has confirmed participation of 2.5%, government of Tanzania 8%, and one of the partners, Total E&P, has also expressed interest of 10%. The third commercialization strategy involves the export of crude oil through an export pipeline to access the international market. We are looking at peak production of about 200,000 barrels per day. So when the refinery takes what is required, the remaining will be taken to the cost for accessing the international market. Since Uganda is land-linked, we've had to plan for a crude export pipeline, and the route that has been agreed upon is the southern route from Hoima to Tanga, that is Tanzania. This is a route of about 1,443 kilometers. We plan to develop a 24-inch crude export pipeline, and this is estimated at about US dollars 3.5 billion. The refinery that we are talking about is we're expecting to invest up to about 4 billion US dollars. The type of crude that we have is waxy, and so the type of pipeline that we require needs to be heated. So this is going to be the first heated crude oil pipeline in Africa, and let's see if there is a technology that can enable us to avoid this, which has come on board. We would gladly take it up if it can enable us avoid this. But this will bring us nearer to what is here in India, the 670-kilometer Mangala development pipeline, which runs from Rajasthan to Gujarati. So if we construct the Uganda-Tanzania crude oil pipeline, it will become the longest heated pipeline in the world, a rank which India is currently holding. Our government is also planning for a development of an industrial park which will host the refinery, an international airport, crude oil and product storage transmission hub, logistics, warehousing, offices, petrochemical industries, and associated facilities, among others. A master plan which provides for the development of utilities, infrastructure, and common services is in the final stages of development. And of course, other supportive infrastructure at national and regional levels are being developed, such as upgraded roads and the railroad network. So what does this provide in terms of opportunities for investment? You recognize that with all these developments, they actually provide investments across the value chain, right from upstream, midstream, and downstream sectors. Opportunities for joint ventures, farming in to existing and future licenses, provision of specialized and logistical services in the various fields of petroleum handling and transportation, waste management and treatment, construction of storage tanks for crude oil, feeder pipelines, facilities for conversion of associated gas to power generation using gas and crude oil, and liquefied petroleum gas, and so on and so forth. And of course, the utility systems for the refinery, among others. All these are opportunities for which we invite the global community, and particularly India, since you have the experience, you have the technology, to come and do business in Uganda by participating in the petroleum sector. I also take this opportunity to invite all of you here, colleagues and the delegates, to attend the 8th East African Petroleum Conference and Exhibition 2017, which will be held in Bujumbura, Burundi, from the 8th to the 10th of March 2017, under the auspices of the East African community. As a nation and a region, we realize that we will attain optimum value from these resources by promoting national content, by achieving in-country value creation and retention, while ensuring competitiveness, efficiency, and effectiveness. Distinguished delegates, Uganda is a developing economy and an emerging oil and gas producer, and therefore has the opportunity to learn from success of countries that have done well in managing their petroleum resources. One of our guiding principles is encouraging a spirit of cooperation in developing of natural resources. Therefore, we have established mutually beneficial partnerships with the international community to benchmark on best practices from countries such as Australia, Botswana, India, Malaysia, Norway, Trinidad and Tobago, United States of America, among others, and are also learning from the mistakes of other countries. We specifically would like to thank the government of India for the continued collaboration with the government of Uganda. The Rajasthan oil fields bear similar crude oil properties with some of the discoveries in Uganda, and as I mentioned, our crude oil pipeline will need to be heated. There is therefore a lot we can learn from India, especially now as we move into the development phase and put in place the required infrastructure to enable commercial production. We hope to establish further areas of mutual cooperation and build on earlier initiatives which included capacity building visits by technical staff to the Rajasthan fields and the Fluid Control Research Institute India and other intergovernmental exchanges. As I conclude, for us to successfully have economic development in our countries, we must strategize, and the strategy must focus on improving skills, reducing the cost of doing business, making available the resources that business needs to compete and thrive in today's global economy, and of course, mutual cooperation is fundamental with respect. Let us continue working together to build sustainable partnerships that add value to our societies. I welcome you to invest in and also visit Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you once again, Minister. Thank you for highlighting cooperation as a key theme in all our developments, and also for showing us how this low-cost oil advantage of Uganda, who is very pertinent in a very low oil price environment that we currently have. So now let's move from Africa to South America, and let me introduce you to Dr. Orlando Belandia, who is the president of the Agencia Nacional de Hidrocarburos from Colombia. Is there a Spanish translation, or? Yes? Yes, there is.
Thank you. Gracias a todos ustedes por estar hasta esta hora en este lugar. Eso me compromete a hacer lo más rápido posible mi intervención. Y sin antes, no podría pasar por alto dar las gracias al gobierno de la India por su gentil invitación a participar en este evento importante, a todos los dignatarios que nos han acompañado en este importante panel. Muchísimas gracias. Quiero también agradecer a nuestra embajadora de la República de Colombia en la India. Para compartir a ustedes estos momentos quisiera en mi presentación, no sé si está acá, que la pudiese visualizar, tomar como referencia una frase que me parece que resume un poco lo que vamos a decir en este día. No sé si esté...
Can we upload the presentation?
Dicen que la presentación estaba lista. No, eso no es. No. No sé, esta no. No está. No sé. La podemos abrir. stop it is there. Ya la encontramos. Ya la encontramos. Yes. Listo. Scorra. ¿Qué puedo pasar acá? Hacia adelante. ¿Es acá? Forward. Next. Permítame adelantar un poco la presentación y detenerme en una frase que resume un poco quizá lo que está pasando en Colombia. Esta frase del presidente del Banco Mundial resume un poco la idea de lo que quisiera compartir con ustedes en esta tarde. ¿Por qué el presidente del Banco Mundial afirma que el país que mejor se ha preparado para enfrentar la crisis de los bajos precios dentro de los países petroleros? La razón de esta frase quizás comporta algunos cambios que rápidamente enfrentó Colombia cuando a finales y quizás a comienzos mejor del 2015 se veía venir la caída del petróleo. Quisiera también hacer énfasis en que lo que vaya a tratar de compartir con ustedes, un poco saliéndome del esquema general de lo que han traído mis colegas que han intervenido antes, decirles que si bien es cierto, hay unos desafíos a los cuales Colombia no es indiferente, sobre hacer todos los ajustes, en buscar energías más eficientes, en acoger todos los aspectos que el mundo hoy requiere de buscar energías más eficientes, lograr un desarrollo sostenible. En ese entorno voy a compartirles un poco cuáles son nuestros desafíos, cuáles han sido nuestras elecciones. En un país como el nuestro, en el que el 30% de sus ingresos fiscales dependen de la venta de crudo, en el que cerca del 8% de su Producto Interno Bruto es derivado de la industria de hidrocarburos. No sin antes hacer la precisión que Colombia no es un país petrolero, dadas sus reservas, pero que en los años 2012, 2013 y 2014 superamos el 1.000.000 de barriles diarios, nos colocó en el top 20 de los países más productores en el mundo, y entonces eso hizo que la dinámica fiscal del país, la inversión social, fuese muy dependiente de los hidrocarburos. Razón por la cual, en las circunstancias de bajos precios, nos obligó a tomar medidas muy rápidas, muy drásticas, que ajustaran no solamente los temas fiscales del país, sino que también nos obligará a tomar decisiones hacia dónde va la industria de los hidrocarburos. Nuestra alta dependencia fiscal en una coyuntura de bajos precios en las que el gobierno no puede tomar mayores medidas porque no somos un país petrolero, no somos parte de la OPEP, pero sin embargo fiscalmente sí dependemos muy fuerte del crudo. ¿Qué hacer? Era el desafío que teníamos que enfrentar. Y quizás cuando les comparta un poco de nuestras elecciones y de nuestros desafíos en la industria petrolera en Colombia, podrán entonces ustedes significar por qué le digo que me quiero apartar un poco de solamente el tema netamente ambiental. Ahora bien, lo primero también habría que significar es que nosotros hemos desarrollado una industria petrolera cerca de 100 años en el país. Nuestro primer campo petrolero lleva desarrollándose cerca de 98 años produciendo. Y claro, en las últimas décadas hemos sufrido esa transformación de pasar de cerca de 300.000 barriles diarios hace aproximadamente unos 10 años a 1.000.000 de barriles diarios, que es el promedio, digamos, del 2012, 13 y 14. La afirmación del presidente del Banco Mundial está orientada a reconocer que el gobierno colombiano fue lo suficientemente ágil para ajustar fiscalmente sus finanzas, su manejo macroeconómico, pero también para tomar unas medidas regulatorias que le permitieran a las compañías seguir en Colombia. El año pasado, en el año 2015, emitimos una serie de ajustes a nuestra reglamentación para que las compañías no se fueran del país. Y a fe que lo logramos. A fe que lo logramos. La mayoría de nuestras compañías que invertían en Colombia, pese a los bajos precios, siguieron quedándose en Colombia. Colombia hoy le está apostando a su industria offshore. Quisiera compartir con ustedes algunas de estas cifras que demuestran qué tanto nosotros hemos cambiado en la industria hidrocarburífera offshore. Estas cifras, quisiera mostrar esta evolución de cómo el Mar Caribe colombiano hoy tiene un sinnúmero importante de contratos de hidrocarburos. Porque la decisión no le queda muy fácil a un país que depende tan fuertemente de los hidrocarburos darse a la tarea de la noche a la mañana sustituir sus ingresos por otra industria o por otra fuente distinta a los hidrocarburos. Entonces, lo que le hemos apostado como una decisión es desarrollar esta industria offshore. Aquí ustedes ven las cifras, cómo ha cambiado en tan solo 4 años el número, por ejemplo, de kilómetros de sísmica. Usted ve que ha crecido casi exponencialmente, de tener 4.700 kilómetros en el 2012 a más de 32.000 kilómetros. No hay ninguna cuenca frontera en el mundo que haya tenido tanta inversión en sísmica como el Mar Caribe colombiano. Y la verdad, quisiera en este escenario decirle que en poco tiempo tendremos buenas noticias de lo importante que fueron estos trabajos. Obviamente aquí está la cifra en millones de dólares, que significan más o menos, de acuerdo a la gráfica anterior, de kilómetros de sísmica, aquí en millones de dólares, cómo crecimos en cifras importantes. A agosto del 2016 creemos que vamos a tener una cifra muy similar en inversiones del 2015. Onshore también estamos trabajando en mejor conocimiento de nuestras cuencas, en mejor información, digamos, en mejorar los temas de licenciamiento ambiental. Pero aquí viene mi reflexión. No tenemos mucha posibilidad de la noche a la mañana de diversificar la fuente de nuestros ingresos. Tenemos que seguir produciendo petróleo. Hicimos una administración eficiente de nuestros contratos en época de precios bajos. Tuvimos el reconocimiento mundial y estamos a puertas de tener unas muy buenas noticias dado el importante trabajo exploratorio que se ha hecho en nuestro Mar Caribe. En nuestro Mar Caribe hoy tenemos operando cerca de 12 compañías, todas top 50 en el mundo en exploración. Y quizás con lo que tenemos previsto que pueda pasar en el primer trimestre del año entrante, Colombia pasaría ahí sí de ser un país con petróleo a poder ser un país petrolero. Las buenas noticias están por llegar. Pero tenemos un desafío y esa es mi posibilidad de compartirlos a ustedes. Existe en el país, y les decía que esa historia de casi 100 años de industria petrolera se ha desarrollado sobre todo en los últimos 50 años en medio de un conflicto interno terrible, en una guerra interna, en una guerra casi, digamos, sin sentido, a veces con matices que rayan ya con lo desproporcionado. Ustedes lo conocen, no queremos ocultar eso, pero si hay una industria que haya sabido qué son los rigores del conflicto interno colombiano, es la industria petrolera. Porque en Colombia pasa una cosa particular. Si ustedes hicieran un mapa de dónde están nuestras potencialidades en materia de hidrocarburos, dónde está desarrollándose esa industria, y por demás, ustedes colocaran un mapa donde se desarrolla el conflicto interno, pues esos dos mapas coinciden plenamente. Las compañías que han invertido en Colombia han sentido el rigor y la dureza. ¿Cómo entender que un país que desarrolla su industria petrolera en medio casi de una guerra civil llegue a producir 1 millón de barriles diarios? La razón, yo creo que las compañías, y en un foro reciente en Cartagena, decían que si había que aprender de Colombia era cómo generar un mecanismo de desarrollo de la industria en condiciones tan adversas como el país la desarrolló. Pero tenemos un reto. La creciente ola de afirmaciones en contra de la industria petrolera, el reto que tenemos para lograr ese desarrollo amigable entre el medio ambiente y la industria en Colombia, ese es un tema de primera página. Nos ocupa mucho de nuestros términos en las decisiones, dada nuestra dependencia de la industria hidrocarburífera, también conciliar un nuevo entorno social en el país. ¿Cuál es ese entorno? Saben ustedes que recientemente logramos la firma del acuerdo de paz con las guerrillas de la FARC. razón por demás que le ameritó todo el esfuerzo al gobierno actual del presidente Santos obtener el Premio Nobel de Paz. Pero se genera una nueva dinámica social resultado de esa posibilidad de diálogo. La palabra diálogo social en Colombia hoy concita todo el comportamiento de las comunidades. En la mente de los colombianos y de la sociedad está la palabra diálogo, pero ese diálogo se ha transportado al desarrollo de la industria. Las compañías que invierten en Colombia, dos importantes compañías que están en nuestro país de la India, Mansarovar y ONGCB Vides, saben de esa conflictividad social que enfrentamos en nuestro país. Luego, aquí hay un desafío importantísimo para el desarrollo. Si bien es cierto, lo hemos escuchado, toda la generación de un entorno amigable con el medio ambiente, la búsqueda de combustibles más eficientes, las alternativas en nuestra canasta energética, en fin, no debemos olvidar que también tenemos que avanzar significativamente en el diálogo social. En un reciente evento organizado en Cartagena de Indias por la Agencia de Hidrocarburos, organizado por la Agencia Colombiana de Hidrocarburos, el común denominador de las agencias reguladoras del mundo que nos acompañaron en este evento es sentir que tenemos que tener destrezas, mejores conocimientos y mejores capacidades como países en el proceso de licenciamiento social. Podemos ser muy eficientes en nuestra prospectividad, podemos ser muy eficientes como geólogos al descubrir, o podemos ser muy eficientes a la hora de planificar hacia dónde va nuestro desarrollo energético. Pero si no somos eficientes en el diálogo social y en buscar mecanismos para que ese licenciamiento social se dé, pues la industria de los hidrocarburos tendrá que asumir unos costos muy complicados. En nuestro país ese es el reto. El reto de la agencia ahora lograr como un desafío, el foro que me han invitado me dicen cuáles son sus decisiones que no tenemos una opción muy grande de tomarlas, tenemos que desarrollar la industria hidrocarburífera, pero el desafío ante el entorno de nuestro país es eso. Y pensamos que era solo de Colombia, pensamos que el licenciamiento social y el diálogo social con las comunidades donde se desarrolla la industria, pensamos que era en Colombia. Pero la conclusión del evento reciente en Cartagena de Indias es que es un problema que está, ocupando las decisiones de muchos países. Quisiera entonces decirle que no basta que tomemos decisiones solamente en materia de diversificar, buscar combustibles mucho más amigables con el medio ambiente, acoger todos estos pactos de disminución de carbono a la atmósfera, sino vamos acompañando también unos procesos de mejor diálogo social. Hoy nuestro país está en un entorno distinto. Hoy nuestro país tiene mejores opciones. La mayoría de las compañías nos han compartido la satisfacción por lo que está pasando en Colombia. Si pudimos desarrollar la industria en medio del fragor de la guerra, lo podremos desarrollar con mucha más claridad, con mucha más eficiencia y en un entorno mucho más amigable para momentos de paz como el que está viviendo en Colombia. Tenemos ahora la posibilidad de desarrollar todo un potencial en nuestro mar Caribe colombiano y también, decirle a las compañías en este día que si hay una cosa en la que Colombia haya evolucionado, y vuelvo y repito la frase del Banco Mundial, es que Colombia tiene no solamente una estabilidad en medio de la guerra, Colombia ha mantenido una estabilidad como pocas naciones en el mundo en sus instituciones, una seguridad jurídica. En Colombia, pese a las circunstancias de orden interno, no cambiamos los contratos de la noche a la mañana, las compañías lo saben, nuestras instituciones han permanecido, la fortaleza de nuestro sistema democrático, y esos elementos han hecho que quizás sea una de las razones por las que las compañías hoy están viendo a Colombia. No es de forma gratuita que este número importante de compañías en una cuenca frontera como el mar Caribe colombiano estén haciendo el nivel de inversiones que se están haciendo. Nuestros esfuerzos, quizás usted lo ven desde el 2004, esto es reciente, como tan solo teníamos un contrato en el mar Caribe a pasar en tan solo 8 o 10 años a más de 20 contratos. En solo 10 años nuestra cuenca está. Pero todavía hay áreas que el país las está ajustando está mejor conociendo su información geológica para decirle a las compañías y al mundo entero que Colombia es un mar de oportunidades. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, doctor. Thank you very much. And thank you very much because I really think that Colombia, as you mentioned, is the best practice in fiscal terms adaptation, and is also a best practice in managing stakeholders and getting the license to operate. So thank you very much. So if I may summarize this event with two words, I think that the two words that reflect everything that has been mentioned, one is growth, and the other one is cooperation. Cooperations between countries and cooperations between companies. And I think all the presenters have also addressed three main issues: how to attract investments, how to do it in a sustainable way, and how to give access to energy to all their citizens. I have been told that we don't have time for questions, but I really would like to ask one headline to each of the ministers. And the headline, and then probably you can summarize at the end, the Indian minister, but the headline will be the following. In one sentence, how can India further help your country in achieving an inclusive and sustainable growth? So if may I start with my only one sentence headline for the press.
Well, cooperation, cooperation, cooperation.
Thank you.
Yeah, it goes without say, cooperation, but also public-private partnerships are extremely key for us to be able to grow.
Eh bien, nous pouvons simplement retenir de ce débat qu'il faut vraiment coopérer dans le cadre d'un partenariat parce que les États ne peuvent rien faire à eux seuls et donc nous comptons sur les sociétés et sur les initiatives privées pour lancer donc un développement certain. Merci.
Si hay un tema en el que nosotros estamos trabajando muy fuertemente en los últimos años es ese tema de la cooperación. Tenemos que mejorar nuestra curva de aprendizaje. Colombia tiene que hacer lo que muchos países hicieron en 40 años, desarrollar una industria offshore. Nosotros lo tenemos que hacer en un horizonte de 8 años. Luego tenemos que acelerar nuestra curva de aprendizaje. Y eso lo hemos logrado con cooperación. Y esa es una palabra que la valoro y que la apoyo, porque creo que en eso hemos sido, digamos, beneficiados de la voluntad, precisamente alguno de esos elementos de cooperación es con el gobierno indio, pero son muchos los países que han volcado esa generosidad hacia el gobierno colombiano de cara a mejorar y acelerar su curva de aprendizaje, porque implica todo un cambio en el paradigma de la industria hidrocarburífera de Colombia. Ese 1 millón de barriles los producimos onshore y ahora offshore creemos que vamos a tener que casi triplicar o cuadruplicar nuestra producción diaria.
That was a long headline.
Cooperación.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say to expand their investment in Sudan, both in upstream, midstream, and downstream, as they are very much familiar with the environment in Sudan. Thank you.
So, Mr. Indian Minister, how can India contribute to the other countries?
Well, I think what we can do is, based on each individual country's requirements, we can send in a multidisciplinary team. It could be people for different countries, either from the power sector or from the petroleum sector or from the renewable energy sector, or another country which wants to expand its footprint on electricity by 2030, we could send in our transmission and distribution company. So we have expertise in different areas, and we believe that all of us have to work together, truly engage with each other, and have India, having learned a lot over its last several decades of development, can help other countries leapfrog into today's day and age with modern technology, rather than going through the learning curve over many years. So we would welcome all the honorable ministers, your excellencies, to write in to Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan, my colleague minister, and then he can pilot the engagement and make it a multidisciplinary cooperation, as he said, so that this Petrotech can actually be the forerunner to a lot more work together with all these countries.
Thank you very much. I think we have the title for the next Petrotech event, Cooperation for Growth. Thank you very much to everybody. Have enjoyed.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you to also all our honorable ministers. So with the commitment that we work towards building more bonds of equal partnership with each other towards securing energy for the world, we close this session. I would like to request our honorable ministers to please step forward for a group photograph. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow morning we are going to be starting at 9 o'clock. The first session is on upstream, and at 11 o'clock we have the Ministerial Conclave, where we have a galaxy of our ministers joining, along with also the chief ministers of some states we are expecting in that session. That's going to be at 11 o'clock, but 9 o'clock we start sharp with the first session, which is on upstream. So thank you to all of you for joining us, and looking forward to have you in the morning. Kindly be seated a little ahead of time, 10 minutes at least, so that we are in time for our first session of the third day. Thank you.